and today we will be studying about the different types of learning. Some of them you might have studied in your high school or plus two classes, like a conditioned reflex, Pavlov's learning. So here, mainly in case of learning, you can see that it is a acquisition. Acquisition means getting or collecting or obtaining some information. For example, when you are studying some topic, you are knowing something about that topic. So that process is known as acquisition, obtaining of information or obtaining of knowledge about something. And that is stored in our memory. Memory is mainly in our brain. There are a lot of neurons are there, and these neurons will be undergoing some kind of modification, especially in their molecular level, and it is through this modification that we are able to keep memory of things. You are remembering your name, you are remembering a lot of things that you have seen while coming to the college. So during all this time, some kind of nervous changes are taking place, especially at the molecular level or at the protein level. And this is how the memory is normally stored in our body. Now we have different type of learning, and one type of learning is known by the name habituation. Now in case of habituation, sometimes when you enter a house, the dog may be, if there is a dog, it may be barking. So dog sense that some intruder has entered into our house, so it is responding. But if you are keep entering the house for 5 or 10 times, after a period of after a cycle of 10 or 15 times, dog will not respond. That is a common observation. Dog may think that this person may be crazy, that is why he is going out and coming in. So dog will not respond, or dog will not bark. Why the dog is not barking? For the dog, that stimulus is not important. So here there is a phenomenon on methylene. Repeated exposure to a stimulus will reduce the probability of response. When a stimulus is coming again, for example, when somebody is going through it, or some sound is coming there, first time you will be responding. But if that sound is coming again and again, after 5 or 6 times, you will not listen to that sound. And that situation is known by the name habituation. So when we listen to something or when we see something again and again, after a period of time, we no longer respond to it. And that is known by the name habituation. It is simply repeated exposure to a stimulus will be reducing the response to that stimulus, and that is happening in almost every sphere of animal kingdom as well as in plants. Here you can see that if you touch this is a sea anemone. If you touch the tentacle, it will be shrinking. So that is what is happening. But if you keep repeating it so many times, there will not be any response. So this kind of situation is known by the name, behavior is known by the name habituation. That is a loss of responsiveness to a stimuli that convey little, or that is our body may not be wasting time on something that doesn't bring any kind of survival value. That is the meaning of this habituation. So habituation prevents an animal from wasting an energy on unimportant stimuli. So we have to respond only to things which are important for our life, for our biological or other type of so that is why our body slowly prevents responding to those stimuli which are not important to us. For example, the sound of a clock, sound of a fan. First time you will hear the sound of the fan, but after some time sitting below that, you no longer will be listening or even hearing that sound of, because your body or your brain has somehow cut the response to that. So this is known by the name habituation. Now we have another type of learning that is known by the name imprinting. So imprinting is a type of learning which is very strong in birds. Also in other animals also we can find imprinting. Now in case of imprinting, there is a very famous case of a newly hatched geese. When a newly hatched geese like this is the geese. So when a newly hatched geese, this is the baby, when they are hatching out of the egg, the normal response of these animals is that they will be following the first moving an object. So normally they will be seeing the first moving object they are seeing is naturally their mother. So they have a tendency to blindly follow their mother. So if you are replacing that mother with some other object, and there was a scientist known by the name Konrad Lorenz, and I will show you the picture of that Konrad Lorenz. He was studying about this imprinting in animals. Now what he did is that this is the normal behavior. Here you can see this is the normal behavior. So he hatched so many eggs of geese, and at the time of hatching out, what Konrad Lorenz did is that he stood before these animals. See, here you can see that somewhere here. So what happened to these geese is that they are following this Konrad Lorenz, or see here you can see that, see somewhere here. So instead of following their mother was absent. So instead of following the mother, they are following the scientist throughout their life. So this phenomenon is known by the name imprinting. So in case of imprinting, what is happening is that there is a critical period in the early life of almost all the animals. During that time, they will be following any object, any moving object, any moving or sound producing object. So and they will be considering that sound producing moving object as their own mother. So that is what is happening in the case of. So instead of that, if they see here also you can see that all these animals, see here, this is another famous picture. So here you can see that these geese are actually following this Konrad Lorenz. What he did is that at the time of hatching, he stood before these animals. He stood before these birds. So birds thought that this person is their mother, and they start following him throughout his life. So this is a very famous experiment. Here also you can see that all these birds are following him as just like they are naturally following their mother, as in this picture. So this situation or this phenomenon is known by the name imprinting. It is actually a neurological mechanism. Even in the case of human being, during the first early period, that is within the first few hours itself, human baby will be able to recognize the mother. And once that recognition took place, it is difficult to change. But in case of human beings, they are not as rigid. But generally, with most of the animals, once this imprinting took place, it is irreversible. It cannot be changed. So that is what is happening here, because all these birds have imprinted to this Konrad Lorenz as their mother. So they will be considering Konrad Lorenz throughout their life as their mother. Even if their natural mother come, they are not going to change it. So that is the problem of imprinting. So once an animal has been wrongly imprinted to something else, they keep following him or following that object throughout their life. So this is a very strange phenomenon, and that is known by the name imprinting. Now another is known by the name sensitization. Now in case of sensitization, increased response to a repeated stimulus. Normally earlier we were studying that in case of habituation we are decreased response to a repeated stimulus. But here the just opposite situation is taking place. For example, a fawn, a baby of a deer. They are hearing the okay. എവിടെ പോകാനാണ് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് പോയിക്കോളൂ. So in the case of this baby of a deer, known by the name fawn, if they are hearing the sound of a predator like a leopard or a tiger, so each time the baby of this deer is hearing this sound, its response will be increasing. For example, you are in a forest and you are hearing the sound of an elephant or smell of an elephant, your fear will be increasing. So even if you know that if there is some leopard or tiger nearby, each time you hear some faint sound of that tiger, your response will be increasing. That phenomenon is known by the name sensitization. So here there is increased response to a repeated stimuli. So that situation is known by the name sensitization. Now we have a totally different type of learning, and that is known by the name insight learning. So in case of insight learning, suddenly you are getting an answer for a problem. In the life of everyone, such things are happening. You might be worried about a problem or difficult situation for several days, but on a fine morning you suddenly get the answer, and that kind of learning is known by the name insight learning. There is a very famous mechanism for insight learning, and here you can see that in the use of insight learning, see, they have a banana here, and these chimpanzees have to take this banana. So they are seeing this banana for several hours, and after several hours they suddenly get an idea. If they are putting these boxes one above the other, and one monkey or one chimpanzee standing on that, they will be able to collect this banana. So this is known by the name insight learning. So in the case of insight learning, these chimpanzees are suddenly getting a solution. So and that solution is coming to you because of your previous knowledge. Suddenly your brain is putting together all the previous knowledge that you have and finding a solution for that. That kind of learning is known as insight learning. Here also you can see that. So either this way the chimpanzee can collect the banana, or they should use some kind of stick. Then also they will be able to collect the banana. Otherwise the banana is very tall, they won't be able to reach with their hands. So using some kind of tricks like this, after a period of time they are finding an answer, and that kind of learning is known by the name insight learning. Here also you can see that. See, if this dog is coming in this way, there is absolutely no possibility of taking this bone. What is the proper route? This instead of moving through these branches, it should come out of the branches. If they are coming in this way, there will be more length for the rope, and so that the dog may be able to get it. So this kind of technique, or this kind of sudden learning is known by the name insight learning. And insight learning always works on our previous knowledge. Only if the animal or the human being has some previous exposure to that particular situation, they will be able to respond appropriately. Now another kind of learning is known as latent learning. So when an organism learns something in its life, but knowledge is not immediately expressed. For example, sometimes you might be, it's a very common observation for that. Young babies, nobody is teaching these young babies how to use a mobile. But after 1 year of age or 2 year of age, you can see that all these young children or babies are using mobile. Nobody might have taught them how to use a mobile. How this is happening? This is because of lateral learning. Each time their mother or father or other siblings in the house are using the mobile, the child may be observing it, and that observation will be remaining in the brain of the child for some time. When a right moment comes, that is when a mobile is when the child is able to get a mobile in its hand, he or she will be immediately start working on that, because by observing how the mother or father has been using the mobile for a long time, the child will be having a clear idea on how to use this mobile. And this kind of learning is known as latent learning. So in case of latent learning, the organism is learning something, but that knowledge is not immediately expressed. Only when a right moment comes, this dormant learning will be suddenly expressed. And that kind of learning is known by the name latent learning. And there are a lot of experiments on latent learning also. Here also you can see that these mice may be moving through this maze, but after running through several times, they will be finding what is the correct route to get out of that. So here you can see that this is a maze, because of there is only one way, that is going the straight line. Normally how a mice or rat is running, it will be always moving in a zigzag manner. So they will be normally entering into these mazes and finding that there is no escape. So only if they are moving in this particular line, they will be able to come out. So this kind of learning is known by the name latent learning. Then we have imitative learning. Imitative learning, that as from the term itself you will be able to understand what is the meaning of the imitative learning. Animal learns something by watching how other animals are doing. For example, parents are imitating the human language. Some birds learn from their older older members of the group. Children learn words from for example, why our children are speaking our mother tongue? Because nobody is teaching them. They are learning it from their parents. So how parents are using the language, they are also using the same way. So that is how the children are using the language. So learning of language is a kind of imitative learning from their parents. See, here you can see that nobody is teaching this monkey how to drink water. How the monkey is learning it? Because this monkey is observing how this person is drinking. So same way the monkey also imitates. So that kind of learning is known as imitative learning, and imitative learning is very popular in both human beings as well as in other animals. See, this is also another case of imitative learning. See, this is the parent and this is the young one, baby. So same thing happens. So when the almost exactly the exact pose they are imitating. So the child may think that the father or mother is sitting like that, so I should also follow the same thing. Children are always good in imitating this. So all these behavior are examples of imitative learning. So imitative learning is very popular in it's a kind of Then another kind of learning is known as conditioned reflex. Sometimes you might have heard about this conditioned reflex. There is a very famous experiment by Pavlov. Sometimes you might have heard about this experiment. Here there is a dog and the dog is getting a meat powder or a bowl of meat. So normally what is the response when the animal sees that? They will be feeling hungry and there will be salivation, and salivation is considered as a normal or unconditioned response. Then after some time what the persons are doing is that whenever they are giving them this meat powder or meat, they are also ringing a bell. So here there are two stimulus. This is the unconditioned stimulus and this is the second stimulus known by the name conditioned stimulus. So what they are doing is that whenever they are giving them the meat, they are also ringing the bell. Now and when this process has been repeated several times, then maybe 10 times or 15 times or 100 times, then what happens is that the person is not giving the meat powder. The person is only ringing the bell. And you can see that the dog is producing salivation. So even in the absence of the original stimulus, that is unconditioned stimulus, the dog may be able to respond, and that response is known by the name conditioned response. So conditioned response is a very important type of learning. Why you are all scared of a ghost? Have you ever seen a ghost? Nobody has seen a ghost. But in our society we have a conditioning. This kind of thing we should fear. And when something like that, and the members in your family or other members will be saying that it may be a ghost. And each time that fear is getting into your mind, the fear of the ghost will be gradually developing. So this is how most of our fear are actually developing in our mind. So that is a good case. So almost all our behavior is a kind of conditioned reflex or conditioned learning. In everything that you are, for example, when you meet the principal, you are behaving in a particular way. When you meet parents, you are behaving in a particular way. When you see a priest, you are behaving. Because all these are actually conditioned behavior. Because from your elders, you might have observed that this is the way I should respond. So these are all conditioned learning. So conditioned learning is an important type of learning that we are having in our life. Then another kind of learning is operant conditioning. Here is a type of associative learning through which strength of a behavior is modified by reinforcement or punishment. There are two things. Sometimes when you are doing, for example, when you are doing good marks in your examination, your parents say that very good, I will give you a new dress, or I will give you some new object or new mobile, or I will allow you to go to film, or something that attracts you, they will be telling. And that is a kind of reward. And each time they are giving you that reward, your tendency to study well actually increases. So that is one way by which certain behavior are actually increasing. And there is another way. Sometimes when you score very low mark, what happens? Parents may be scolding you. Sometimes they will be beating you. Sometimes they will be telling all bad, abusing you. All bad words will be coming, and you feel worried. So that also is a kind of it's a kind of punishment. So for avoiding that punishment, you start studying. So here you can see that for a repentance for the repentance of an learning process, either there should be some reward or there should be some punishment. Both way works, but rewards are always better because it keeps the person in a very good psychological situation. Punishment is always very painful, very hurting, so that the person may be in a stress even after the punishment session has been over. So this is what is happening in the operant conditioning. Here there are two experiments. For example, here this rat has to press this lever. So when the rat is pressing the lever, it will be getting some food particles. So each time the rat is pressing this lever, they are getting some food. So it is a reward. Now another is that another type of response is that each time they are pressing this lever, they are hearing a very beep sound, and that beep sound is actually distracting the disturbing the rat, so that it no longer press the lever. So here what is happening? One is favoring this pressing of lever, another is leading to a situation in which the rat no longer press this lever, and that is a punishment. So here this is how most of our voluntary behavior are actually trained. For example, when you are getting some kind of gift or reward, there is a stronger tendency to repeat that behavior. When we have obtaining some kind of punishment, we seldom repeat that behavior. The same thing is happening, and this is known by the name operant conditioning. Operant, it's also a way of conditioning actually linked with either a reward or punishment. So this is also another case of learning. Here also you can see that. So in case of we are associating an involuntary response with this. For example, here meat powder is actually associated with the ringing of a bell or whistling or a whistle. So after some time, even by blowing the whistle, the dog may be salivating. So that is a classical conditioning. But here there will be consequence, either good reward or there will be a bad sound. So either reward or punishment. That is the case in the case of operant conditioning. So these are the various types of learning. Now this is an important type of important topic. Sometimes they will ask you give a detailed account on different types of learning. So you should explain what is learning, what is habituation, then what is imprinting, sensitization, then insight learning, then latent learning, then imitative learning, conditioned reflex, operant conditioning. These are the various types of learning that you have to explain.